Paul Newman was born Paul Leonard Newman on January 26, 1925, in Shaker Heights, Ohio. He was raised in a middle-class Jewish household by his father, Arthur Newman, a sporting goods store owner, and his mother, Teresa Fetzer, a cultured woman who encouraged her son's interest in the arts. His mother recognized his striking looks and natural presence early on and fostered his involvement in theater, enrolling him in acting classes while he was still a child. Yet Newman's early life was not one of immediate stardom or privilege. He grew up during the Great Depression, learning values of discipline, humility, and perseverance that would shape his character for the rest of his life. Newman's youth was interrupted by World War II, during which he served in the U.S. Navy as a radio operator and rear gunner in the Pacific Theater. The experience deeply affected him, instilling both a sense of gratitude for survival and a lingering seriousness that would later surface in many of his performances. After the war, he attended Kenyon College where he studied economics and drama, and later trained at the Yale School of Drama and the Actors Studio in New York City. These years of formal training gave Newman a strong theatrical foundation and a deep respect for the craft of acting, which he approached not as a vehicle for fame but as disciplined work. Paul Newman's rise to stardom was neither instant nor effortless. His early Broadway and television roles earned him notice, but his first major Hollywood films were met with mixed success. It was not until the mid-1950s that Newman began to emerge as a leading man of remarkable depth and charisma. His breakout role in Somebody Up There Likes Me, 1956, portraying boxer Rocky Graziano, revealed his ability to combine physical intensity with emotional vulnerability. This performance marked the beginning of a career that would redefine what it meant to be a male star in American cinema. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, Newman built an extraordinary body of work portraying complex, often rebellious characters who challenged authority and convention. Films such as Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, 1958, The Hustler, 1961, HUD, 1963, and Cool Hand Luke, 1967, showcased his range and intelligence as an actor. Newman brought an unusual mix of toughness and sensitivity to his roles. He could be defiant without arrogance, wounded without self-pity. His famous blue eyes, often noted for their beauty, became expressive tools through which audiences could glimpse the inner lives of his characters. Despite his immense popularity, Newman remained ambivalent about celebrity. He resisted the Hollywood star system and avoided self-promotion, often poking fun at his own image. This humility endeared him to colleagues and fans alike. He famously remarked that he felt like a character actor in a leading man's body, a statement that captured his artistic self-awareness and refusal to take himself too seriously. As his career progressed, Newman continued to take risks, moving between mainstream hits and more challenging projects. He displayed a remarkable willingness to age on screen, embracing roles that reflected maturity, regret, and moral ambiguity. In The Verdict, 1982, he delivered one of his most acclaimed performances as a washed-up lawyer seeking redemption, earning widespread praise and reaffirming his stature as one of cinema's finest actors. After multiple Oscar nominations, Newman finally won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1987 for The Color of Money, a sequel to The Hustler. True to form, he accepted the honor with understated grace, more appreciative of the recognition than triumphant. Beyond acting, Paul Newman pursued his passions with equal seriousness. He was a dedicated race car driver, competing successfully in professional motorsports well into middle age. Racing was not a hobby for him but a disciplined pursuit that reflected his love of challenge and precision. This passion later inspired his involvement in team ownership, most notably Newman/Haas Racing, further demonstrating his commitment to excellence outside of Hollywood. Perhaps the most profound aspect of Paul Newman's legacy lies in his philanthropy. In 1982, he co-founded Newman's Own, a food company created with the simple idea of donating all profits to charity. What began modestly grew into a philanthropic powerhouse, eventually donating hundreds of millions of dollars to causes ranging from education and healthcare to disaster relief and social justice. Newman's charitable work extended further through the creation of the Hole in the Wall gang camps, which provide life-changing experiences for children with serious illnesses. Remarkably, Newman never sought personal profit or acclaim from these efforts. He viewed them as an obligation rather than an achievement. Paul Newman's personal life was as layered, compelling, and human as the characters he brought to the screen. Behind the piercing blue eyes and effortless charisma was a man who experienced love, loss, growth, and deep commitment over the course of his 83 remarkable years. Newman's first marriage began long before global fame transformed him into a Hollywood icon. In 1949, he married Jackie Witt, a woman he met during his early acting years when his ambitions outweighed his recognition. At the time, Newman was still struggling to establish himself, juggling theater work, financial uncertainty, and the pressures of a young family. Their marriage lasted nearly a decade, from 1949 to 1958, and together they welcomed 3 children. While the union ultimately ended in divorce, it represented a formative chapter in Newman's life, one marked by youthful optimism, responsibility, and the growing pains that accompanied his ascent in the entertainment industry. The demands of a burgeoning career and the personal changes fame imposed proved difficult to reconcile, and the marriage quietly dissolved, leaving a lasting imprint on Newman's understanding of love and partnership. That understanding would be profoundly reshaped later in 1958 when Newman married fellow actor Joanne Woodward, a woman who would become not only his wife but his lifelong companion, creative equal, and emotional anchor. Their connection was immediate and intense, forged through shared values, artistic passion, and a mutual respect that transcended the superficial glamour of Hollywood. Together they raised 3 daughters and built a family life that was fiercely private yet deeply affectionate. Unlike many celebrity marriages, theirs endured the pressures of fame, temptation, and time. Newman often spoke candidly about the challenges of staying faithful and grounded, famously quipping that, "There's no reason to go out for hamburger when you have steak at home," a line that captured both his humor and devotion. Their marriage lasted an extraordinary 50 years, an almost unheard-of achievement in an industry notorious for fleeting relationships. Through career highs and personal hardships, Newman and Woodward remained steadfast partners until his death in 2008. Their bond became emblematic of enduring love, demonstrating that genuine commitment could survive even under the relentless spotlight of fame. Beyond his roles as husband, father, and actor, Newman also explored spiritual dimensions of life on his own terms. He was ordained as a minister in the Universal Life Church, a detail that reflected his independent thinking and personal approach to faith. While not traditionally religious, Newman believed in compassion, service, and the dignity of individual belief, values that aligned with his extensive philanthropic efforts later in life. For decades, Paul Newman rarely spoke publicly about Brandon DeWilde, the gifted child actor who shared the screen with him in the 1953 classic Shane. While audiences remembered the film as a defining Western and a cornerstone of American cinema, few realized that Newman carried a quiet, lingering reflection about the young boy whose life ended far too soon. Only later in life did Newman finally open up, offering a rare and deeply personal perspective on DeWilde, one marked by admiration, sadness, and regret. At the time of Shane, Brandon DeWilde was already a seasoned performer, astonishing Hollywood with his emotional maturity and natural presence. Newman, still early in his own career, watched the young actor closely and was struck by his instincts. Reflecting years later, Newman admitted, Brandon wasn't acting in the way adults act. He was simply being. That's a rare thing, and it's something you can't teach. Newman acknowledged that DeWilde possessed a raw authenticity that even veteran actors struggled to achieve. He listened, Newman said. Most actors wait for their turn to speak. Brandon listened, really listened, and then responded. That's what made him extraordinary. Despite his obvious talent, DeWilde faced the difficult transition that haunted many child stars. As he grew older, roles became scarcer, and Hollywood's attention drifted elsewhere. Newman, looking back with the clarity of age, expressed a quiet sorrow. Hollywood can be merciless, he reflected. It celebrates you loudly, then forgets you just as quickly. Brandon was caught in that machinery before he ever had a chance to understand it. Newman admitted he often wondered whether more could have been done to guide DeWilde through the industry's brutal realities. I wish I'd reached out more, he said candidly. At the time, I was busy chasing my own career, my own insecurities. You don't realize until later that a few words, a phone call, could matter. The tragedy of DeWilde's untimely death in a car accident in 1972 deeply affected Newman, though he rarely spoke of it publicly. When I heard he was gone, it hit me harder than I expected, Newman confessed. Not just because he was talented, but because he was gentle. That gentleness doesn't survive easily in this business. Newman also addressed the myth that childhood fame guarantees lifelong success. People assume talent protects you, he said. It doesn't. Talent makes you visible, but it doesn't make you safe. His words reflected a broader understanding of the emotional cost of fame, especially for children thrust into adult worlds too soon. In breaking his silence, Newman did not seek to rewrite history or assign blame. Instead, his reflections served as a quiet tribute. Brandon DeWilde mattered, Newman said simply. He mattered as an artist, and he mattered as a human being. I hope people remember that. For Newman, remembering DeWilde was not about nostalgia but about acknowledgement of a bright light that flickered briefly yet left a lasting impression. Some people pass through your life for only a moment, he concluded. But they stay with you forever. By the early summer of 2008, a quiet gravity had settled around Paul Newman's name as reports began to surface that the legendary actor was facing one final, deeply personal battle. In June of that year, major news outlets revealed that Newman had been diagnosed with lung cancer and was undergoing treatment at the renowned Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. The news sent a ripple of concern through Hollywood and among generations of admirers who had grown up watching his piercing blue eyes light up the screen. True to form, Newman himself remained characteristically private, choosing dignity and restraint over public statements or dramatic displays. It was A.E. Hotchner, Newman's closest friend, confidant, and longtime business partner in the wildly successful Newman's own enterprise, who quietly filled in some of the timeline. In a mid-2008 interview with the Associated Press, Hotchner revealed that Newman had confided in him nearly a year and a half earlier about the diagnosis. The disclosure underscored not only the seriousness of Newman's condition, but also the intimate circle within which he chose to share such life-altering news. Even as speculation mounted, Newman's spokesperson offered only a gentle reassurance to the public, stating that the actor was doing nicely, neither confirming nor denying the lung cancer diagnosis. It was a carefully measured response that reflected Newman's lifelong aversion to self-pity and public spectacle. The irony of the illness was not lost on those who knew his history. Newman had been a heavy cigarette smoker for much of his adult life, a habit formed in an era when smoking was both commonplace and glamorized, particularly in Hollywood. He finally quit in 1986, a decision that came too late to completely undo the physical toll of decades of addiction, but one that still spoke to his strength of will and self-awareness. In his later years, Newman openly acknowledged his regrets about smoking, offering a quiet, cautionary example rather than a public lecture. On the morning of September 26, 2008, Paul Newman passed away peacefully at his home in Westport, Connecticut. He was 83 years old. The news marked the end of an era, not just the loss of a towering film icon, but of a man whose integrity, humility, and generosity had earned him a rare and enduring respect. In keeping with his lifelong preference for privacy, Newman was cremated following a small private funeral service attended only by close family and friends. There were no grand public memorials, no elaborate ceremonies, just a quiet farewell befitting a man who had always believed that character mattered more than applause.